Hello, and welcome to another episode of Fire 5 at Phoenix. So we are into season 3, and we did the pilot episode about a month ago. So this is now officially the first episode. So thank you for sending your questions in. Nassim has the questions today, so he's in the... You do have the questions, right?
I do.
Nassim is in control. Well, he is now in control. He has the questions. And today, this episode, we will be talking about relationships. So ultimately, we will probably be focusing most of our conversations around relationship with self and relationship with other people, but that could really focus on anything, depending on what your questions are. So let's just get straight into it.
Okay.
Hit us with the questions, and let's see what people are asking.
Right, I'll start with the first one that's more for both of us.
Okay.
And question is, what is your most valuable relationship you have and why is it your most valuable relationship?
Okay, you want me to answer first?
Go on, yeah, I'll let you ladies first in this one.
So it's a weird one, especially as a parent, because I think it feels like the right answer should be my relationship with you. But I think ultimately my relationship with myself is the most important, because I'm always with me. I guess I'm always spending time with me. But I think also my relationship with myself ultimately impacts my relationship with you. So if I don't work on my relationship with myself, how I talk to myself, how I show up for myself, that's going to impact how our relationship is, I guess. So now the pressure's on for you to answer the same question. But I think
my answer.
There's lots of different relationships as well, isn't there? And I think there's relationships with yourself, there's partner relationship, parent relationship, then you've got relationships with coaches, with teammates. So I guess the variety for you is slightly different. But yeah, I'm intrigued as to what you might say.
It definitely depends on the situation. And I probably would have said with myself too, because the relationship you have with yourself kind of defines who you are and how you are and how you maintain relationships with other people. So, like you said, if I don't have a good relationship with myself, I can't expect to build a good relationship with teammates, coaches, or anyone else really. So yeah, I definitely agree with your answer. But then I would say that my relationship with you and my dad is quite important, as to keep that relationship with two people that will kind of always be in my corner. I think that's very important to maintain also.
Yeah, it's that unconditional
Yeah,
cornering, isn't it, I guess? Whereas
yeah.
coaches will come and go, teammates will come and go, other people will come and go. I guess that's the two that are guaranteed, isn't it?
Yeah, but you're stuck with your parents though. So
Yeah, you
that's for
didn't get
sure.
to choose us, but
No,
you're stuck with
no.
us. Yeah, interesting. Do you think your relationship with yourself is something that you consciously work on?
No, I don't think it is. However, there's stuff I probably do that does build on the relationship with myself and probably helps within building the other relationships. But I wouldn't say I constantly make an effort to help the relationship with myself. Probably something I can improve on. Maybe something that can help me in the long term.
Yeah, I know I'm throwing extra questions in. I'm just curious because obviously with me doing this type of work, I'm working with people who are working on their relationship with themselves all the time. So I get that constant reminder of things that I know I could do, other things that I can do, things that I may want to do, also things that I may not want to do. But that's very different in your world. So I was just curious as to whether it's something you consciously work on or whether it's worked on as a byproduct of what you do.
I agree with that. I think yeah, kind of creating relationships with others has helped me kind of understand how those work and then kind of allowed me to then work subconsciously on myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It goes both ways, isn't it? Because you can learn about yourself and that helps you to learn about other people, or you can learn about other people and that helps you to understand yourself a little bit better. I think it probably goes both ways, actually, to be fair.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely agree.
It's a good first question, though.
It was. But should we move on to the next one?
Yeah, go for it.
So I guess this one's kind of for both of us because you would have had the same experiences and situations, but how do you maintain relationships while training and chasing your goals?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think it's a tough one, especially I think you really have to communicate what's important and why it's important, but ultimately you can't control the other person getting on board with that. And I think that was the challenge for me, is that it was really important to me. I know obviously we're going back a little while now when I was competing, but it was something that was really important to me. And although you can communicate that and you can communicate what that means your priorities are and what that means about changing the things that you have and the things that you do, ultimately you can't control somebody else getting on board with that. And I think especially with, you know, talking about your environment, and for me at that time competing, it's a big commitment. It's a big commitment for the athlete in terms of how you live, how you eat, how you train, how you sleep. All of those things is a massive commitment. And for the athlete themselves, that's a challenge to kind of keep that dedication, the commitment, being consistent with it. That's what makes a good athlete. If you are consistent and dedicated and disciplined, they are all of the things that elevate the athlete from the amateur and hobbyist to being a professional. And whilst I didn't compete professionally, you still, if you want to compete at a certain level, you have to do exactly the same things that professional athletes do. But you've also got to hold down a full-time job and parenting responsibilities at the same time. Or certainly I did, and others will too. But I think the challenge for me was that I was doing all of those things, and yet it wasn't as a professional athlete. So I think for other people, it was quite hard for them to get their head around, like, why would you do all of that? Why would you train so hard and eat differently and kind of make all of that commitment ultimately for something that is a hobby? So I think that's probably where it's different for both of us, because it is now your job, but it's also only recently become your job, and you've been living this lifestyle for a long time. So I think for me, it was just an acceptance at some, you know, I got to the point where it was, okay, this is important to me. This is the commitment that I need to make to get what I want, to have what I want, to achieve what I want. But ultimately, I can't control somebody else getting on board with that. I can only communicate why it's important and ask them for their support and tell them what I need from them to support me with that. If they're not on board with that, I then have to decide what's more important. Is the goal and is that more important? Are the things that I want to achieve in life, is that more important? Or is this individual more important? And that's the challenge. You can ask, you can communicate, but you can't force somebody to do that. And even if you do, if you put that pressure on, ultimately the resentment will come up at some point. Either they will resent you because they feel backed into the corner, or you resent them because you know that it's not an authentic support, and they're doing it because they feel they have to. So the resentment shows up eventually. So
yeah, the truth comes out.
It does. Yeah, you can't hold that stuff down for long. So like eventually it's gonna come through one way or another, and it never ends well. So sometimes just like that really honest conversation. Sometimes that's a difficult conversation to say, like, I get it, I hear you, I know that's important to you, but that's not the lifestyle I want. You know, I can't show up in the same way. That's just, unfortunately, that's sometimes how it goes. But that's also why some people push through to that professional route, and other people choose other things to be a priority. And there's no right or wrong, it's just what is important to you. And in that hierarchy of things that are important, what is more important for that time? You can make a different decision at a later date, but ultimately, like, if that drive and that passion is there and it's that important to you, then you then have to decide where everything else fits in.
Yeah. No, I agree. I do agree with that. I do agree.
So
But I'd say
how do you answer it? How do you approach it?
the relationships I have and have held are kind of ones that have stood the test of time in a way. So like you said, I've been trying to do this and trying to be a professional for probably about 7 years now, when I really decided I wanted to take basketball seriously. And it's always been basketball first with and everyone I've been friends with and has known that's always going to be a priority. So if you can't get on board with that, if you can be okay with not seeing me often because I'm training or because I'm doing whatever, then if you can't be okay with it, then that's where friendships and relationships have kind of drifted apart. And the ones that have stayed around have supported and have been true to, in a way, holding the relationship together throughout this time, and that's why it's worked, and that's why I've been able to maintain the friendships and relationships I have, because it's been nothing but support, and there's not been any complaints or I don't know whatever words you use with it, but it's just been nothing but support, and that's how I feel like I managed to keep all these relationships and friendships.
Do you think you're naturally in environments where you're meeting people who get it, and you're meeting people that either have similar goals and ambitions, that they understand the commitment? Do you think that that helps?
Yeah, definitely, because the levels I've played at, and for example, like the teammates I've had, even if they don't have the same goals as me, they understand because they know what basketball can do and can bring you. Whether it's for them or whether it's not, they
Mm,
still understood, and they've, you know, it doesn't matter what our goals are. When we're playing on the same team, we're still working towards the same goal, and therefore they understand the goals further beyond that season.
yeah. I think that does make the difference. I think the situation for me was different because I wasn't doing that. So
Yeah, you weren't in a team environment as
no,
such.
and also
Yeah,
I wasn't. Although I was, I was training as, I was going to the gym like a normal gym person. And then for me, those opportunities for competing and going to the next level kind of came out of nowhere. So I think that was the challenge, is that the people that were in my world at that time, that wasn't the Zoe that they knew. So all of
yeah,
a sudden, Zoe's showing up differently because Zoe's got this commitment, or, I'm doing things differently. So I think that was the difference that made the difference. I think that's what people struggled with was, well, hang on a minute. When I first met you, you would go to a gym class a couple of times a week. Now you're talking about training 3 or 4 times a week. Training's non-negotiable. You're not doing certain social events because you want to get to bed early because you've got training the next day, or you're not drinking because you've got training. And so I think my lifestyle changed, which some people found more difficult than others, because it changed who I was. And it didn't change who I was, but it did change how I was. Whereas I think for you, like for most people who've known you because of your age, that is like, that's kind of what you present to them at the first
yeah.
meeting, is like, this is who I am, this is what I do. I think I wonder how it would change if you suddenly decided you wanted to do something different that meant a
Yeah,
lifestyle change. And
would I be able to keep the same friendships and relationships? Yeah, that was an interesting thought. I never thought of that. I'm too basketball first to think of doing anything else at the moment.
But I think that's the thing, is I think that automatically puts you around people who get and accept that. So it puts you in a good position to meet people who are going to be very supportive of that. I think the challenge potentially later on is, you know, like when you retire from basketball and you start to do something else, that you've then got to find the people who support that, or the people who've been with you all through basketball have to support what you choose to do next.
Yeah,
But also, I think it puts you in with people who've got a very similar lifestyle to you.
it's true. It's true.
It's a really interesting question, because I
Well,
think both
yeah,
of us are coming at it from different perspectives, although the sport is probably important to both of us at a certain level. I've had periods of time where that sport has been more of a priority, but then
yeah,
like for me, going into the business and creating the business and being able to work on the business, I had to deprioritize sport and training. So I stopped competing. I changed up how I was training to support being able to set up a business. So although the drive is still there, the commitment, the consistency, the discipline, that's all still there, but it's going into something different.
yeah,
It also means the relationships change because you're not spending time with certain people and you start to meet new people in your new world. And so that changes as well.
yeah.
I
It's
think,
interesting. Yeah.
what was the original question?
How do you maintain relationships while training and chasing your goals?
Yeah. So I think we have answered that.
Definitely,
It's
yeah,
because I think that's the thing, is it's your priority, it's your commitment, it's your thing. So it's finding the people who support that. And if they don't support that, that's when you then have to make the decision of, is keeping the relationship more important, or is chasing my dreams and my ambitions more important? But I do think that there's a high risk of that resentment building if you force somebody into your what's in, you know, on your journey.
definitely. Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh, Moving on to the next one.
Yeah.
Uh, sort of, how do you put yourself first whilst caring for someone else's feelings and life plans?
Almost the same question from the different perspective, isn't it?
Kind of, yeah.
How do you interpret the question?
I see it as, how do you still do the things you need to do to further your goals while supporting someone else? That's kind of how I would see it. But to answer it, I just think you pick and choose. There's certain things that you can do that might benefit you and that might help others, but there may be actions that you can do both, like
Mm.
whether it's working with someone on something, or maybe like we are now, like talking through in finer detail about goals and life plans and relationships. There's different ways you can go about it, um, but definitely, I don't know if you necessarily need to put yourself first when helping someone else, because you can help them and put them first while you're helping them, and then once you think they are on the right path, you put yourself back first and focus on what you need to do.
So more of a step in, step back.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's kind of how I would answer and see that question. How
Hmm.
would you?
Read the question for me again.
How do you put yourself first whilst caring for someone else's feelings and life plans?
Yeah,
Tough question.
it is a tough question. The thing that's jumping into my mind is that it's boundaries, that it is, and I think it's about protecting and respecting and preserving the things that are important to you whilst you support somebody else. So I think I would agree with you. Like, it's not necessarily about putting yourself first, but I think it's about not putting yourself last. Does that make sense? Because it sounds like that's the same thing, but it's not.
Yeah,
So I think a lot of people feel like that you can't have both of those things. Can you still put yourself first and support somebody else's like priorities and things that are important to them? And I think a lot of people feel it needs to be like an either or an or rather than you can do both things. So I think, again, communication is really important. Like you need to sit down with people to say, right, this is what's really important to me. And like, this is what is non-negotiable and this is what is negotiable. So like with you, like there's certain things that are going to be non-negotiable. Like there's certain things that you need in life that are your commitment to what you do. But there will also be some things that you are willing to negotiate. You know, there's certain things that you can be more flexible with, or it might be certain things that you can give or take on. But there will also be some very kind of like hard and fast, like this has to happen or this can't happen, like for it to fit in line. And I think that would be the same with the other person as well. So I think the communication is really important, of sitting down and saying, right, this is what's really important, this is what is not negotiable, and this is what I'm willing to kind of discuss and work out how we find that joint solution to be able to make it work for both of us. So
yeah,
I think it's that kind of I'm okay, you're okay, not necessarily, well, I won't be okay so that you can be okay, or you can't be okay because I need to be okay. It's finding a way forward where I'm okay and you're okay. I'm doing the things that are important to me, you're doing the things that are important to you, and then we come together on some of those other things as well. So I think I think it's the way it's also worded in terms of putting yourself first, because that sounds, I guess that societal thing, isn't it? That putting yourself first sounds quite selfish, but I think I'm like, my interpretation of that is about respecting and preserving the things that are important to you whilst supporting somebody else. And
yeah,
that for me is the boundaries. And then it's like that communication of being able to say, this is what's important, these are the things that are less important, that we can play about with and work out how we make that work together. So I think it's not so much about putting yourself first, it's about making sure that you don't put yourself last to accommodate somebody else's needs and their dreams and their goals.
no, I definitely see what you're saying, and I do agree. I do agree. Yeah,
I think there's also that the life cycle as well. I think dependent on what things are, sometimes, you know, you do have to put yourself first and you do have to prioritize the things that are important if you want to achieve them. Because anything where there's a small percentage of people that achieve it, it means you've got to go above and beyond what everybody else is doing to be able to get there. And
yeah,
sometimes that does mean that you need to put that goal above, not in terms of putting yourself first, but you need to put that goal first. And that does mean then that deprioritizes other things. But I think the communication is really important, because what you're saying is, this is important to me, I need to put time and effort and energy into this. What you're not saying, but what could be interpreted, is this is more important than you.
yeah. It's true. But I don't think putting yourself first is necessarily being selfish, because if you don't put yourself first and you can help everyone else do it, support and do what they need to do, at the end of the day, what are you going to be left with if you haven't done anything for yourself? Most likely nothing. So it's not selfish, but that's why, kind of the way you said it, it's like a dance. Like you come out, you put yourself first as the main priority, but there's times where someone else is going to need your support or help, so you help them, and then you come back
Yeah.
to bettering yourself. But
It's I described it once with a client where it's like a lot of people talk about life being like a journey, and it's kind of like we're all on a motorway. Yeah, so there's like 2-3 lanes on the motorway. You're in your lane, you know where you're going. I'm in my lane, I know where I'm going. but at some point you'll get off at a junction because you'll go off to do something, and I'll continue. But if I said to you, like, you have to stay, you can't get off at that junction because this is important to me, like, you're not on your journey anymore, you're now on my journey. So like,
Yeah.
and that doesn't mean that you won't go off, do your thing and come back on again. It might mean that we still end up at the same destination. It's just we're taking a different route to get there. But if you go on my route, you're on my journey, you're not on yours.
I like that analogy, and I agree with it completely, to be honest. But yeah.
And ultimately, in terms of our legacy, for some people that might be important, that they have a legacy, that they helped support other people to achieve what they wanted to achieve. But how much regret is going to come at the end of that if that's what you've spent your life doing?
I imagine a lot, to be honest.
I think so, yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree. I think that resentment would pop up. The blame and shame would come up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Great question.
It was, and nice to dive into the smaller details about it as well. This next question, however, I think it's more for me.
Okay.
When you're in a slump with basketball training, are you kinder or harder on yourself? A slump in basketball terms, for people that don't know, is, for example, say I'm just having like a week or 2 weeks of not shooting well, or don't feel like I'm playing well, and that's kind of what we call a slump. But yeah, so when you're in a slump with training or games, are you kinder or harder on yourself? And I like this question because I never really thought about it, but I think I would say I'm more kinder on myself. Because I don't believe that I mean, for me, going into games and going into training and feeling relaxed is a big part of playing well for me. I don't like to feel tense or have other things on my mind. So when I've been in many slumps, and it happens at least once a season. It's normal, and it's just kind of just building yourself to get out of it. But I would say I'm more kind on myself. Like, what I tend to do is just take time to get extra shots up, or make sure I'm concentrating on bits on my shooting form. And to be honest, the big thing I do is watch my old highlights to kind of remind myself of what I can do, and not to second guess the things I can do and the way I can play. But that's kind of how I approach slumps. I used to get really worked up and really anxious about them because I couldn't figure out what it was or why. But I think it's normal, and I've listened to other podcasts of ex-NBA players talking about slumps and how it's just a thing that everyone will go through many times in their career. But it took a while to build the right mindset to get out of it. But I think I'm starting to crack it down now.
What's the self-talk when you're in those slumps?
Next one's going in. Pretty much.
Yeah.
I do a lot of I would say do a lot of self-talk in my head more than anything. I don't necessarily speak to myself out loud. Don't want to too crazy. But yeah, it's kind of just like even if I miss my last 5 shots, that 6th one is going in. That one doesn't go in. 7th one, it's just in my head. It's going in. And that kind of, and then eventually I have a game or have a training session where I won't miss and kind of break the slump, and then kind of for the next little while feeling normal again.
And outside or off court, what's that kind of inner conversation that tells you that that's more self-kindness, self-compassion rather than criticism?
I don't know. I think it's just the way I word stuff in my head. It's not come on, you idiot, make the shot, like or swearing to myself. It's just it's
more encouraging.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. Yeah. So
yeah.
Take your
Do you think
time.
that comes with experience as well? Because you said like you're starting to figure out how to work your way through it. Is that experience?
Definitely. I've had younger players that have asked me, what do I do when I'm not shooting well, or my form feels weird, or my shot feels off, and so just get extra shots up. Just even if you go to the park by yourself and just shoot by yourself, and it just gives you the space just to not think about anything else and just what's important, and maybe even the little details on your shot. But yeah, I think definitely experience comes with that, because like probably my first few slumps, I can't remember them now. It would have been a while ago, but probably just panicking. Yeah,
I can remember them very well,
yeah,
because it was so hard to know kind of what to do, because it doesn't matter what I say. If you're in it, you're in it. It's not
yeah.
that any words of encouragement for me kind of talk you out of it. But it's good that because like from a research point of view, the positive self-talk and talking to yourself with that care and compassion from a research perspective is more likely to bring the positive results. The self-deprecation and self-criticism just brings it down further. So I think even though people talk about, I needed to be shouted at, or I need to be like, that's how they kind of get things going, that's when people are in that state that actually that the shouting, that inner confidence is there in terms of what they know they're able to achieve, that the shouting boosts that rather than like the criticism side of things. So that's good to hear. But I'm not, the slump is very unique to sport, isn't it? And I know basketball, but I mean, it's not, there'll be people watching, listening to this that are in business or in work that will just have those periods of time where things don't go as well.
Business slump. Yeah, we call it a shooting slump. You could definitely be a business slump.
You get a little run of people saying no, or certain certain things happen that make you question it. And I think it's not uncommon, but it's good to hear that. Yeah, and I would certainly, from a coaching point of view, encourage people to approach it with the care and compassion and encouragement rather than the opposite. So good. Another good question. Is that
Very
4?
much. That is 4. So
That's
let's
the
say
last
moving
one.
on to our final question of
Yeah,
the.
go for it.
Okay, so it says you have a good relationship. Talking about me and you, so we
Okay.
have a good relationship. Was that typical for your friends, or was it the opposite? And what advice would you give? So I'm guessing they're asking me.
Yeah, it sounds like it's more directed to
Yeah.
you.
So I'm not sure, because I didn't know. I don't think I really would talk to my friends about the relationship with their parents so much growing up. I don't. I think it was more the age, even now. But I don't know. I don't think we ever really dove into that conversation. But from what I've seen from going around, like friends' houses and stuff, that so, people have healthy, normal relationships with their parents. But that's what we were saying about the last time we recorded. So that, like, kind of me and you we are like friends.
Mm-hmm.
I really saw that within some of my friends' relationships with their parents. It's not saying that they didn't have it,
Yeah.
but for the most part, I didn't see like how comfortable we are about talking things, and like, I might make a joke with you around them, and they, like, look, like, can you say that? You can say that around his mom, but we just have a different kind of. I'd say it wasn't normal, because we do have a different type of relationship, definitely.
I think also it's what is a good relationship, like what is a good
Yeah,
parent-child relationship, because what we think is good for us might not work for somebody else, so
yeah,
and I know we have conversations around this where we, perhaps your friends or my friends and what their relationships are like with their parents or their children, and what works really well for them wouldn't work for us. So I think sometimes the dynamic is different but I think the question is what is a good relationship what does a good relationship look like? And I
Yeah.
think parenting is so subjective of what good parenting is, that it just makes that conversation really interesting, because I am pretty sure there will be some people out there who would say that, not that it's unhealthy, but I think there would be some people that say, I wouldn't want that relationship with my child. Like, for them, there's a line where what is appropriate, what is not appropriate, what can be said, what can't be said in terms of that parent-child dynamic. I know there will be some people who
I
would
don't
look
know why.
at
We
say,
have great banter over here.
but yeah, we're good. That's what I mean. Like, we're good with it. But for some
Yeah.
people, that would be really uncomfortable. That would feel inappropriate for them. Like, and absolutely, I would not change it at all. Like, I wouldn't change any part of it. But it works really well for us. So I think that's partly us and our character. I think that's what shaped it. I can tell you now, I never sat down and said, this is the kind of parent that I wanted to be. Like,
Yeah.
it just kind of evolves over time. But I think also it evolves with the character and the nature of the people that are involved. But I think, it works for us. But I think just because other people have a different type of relationship doesn't mean that that's not a good, healthy relationship.
Yeah.
It's just different.
The end of the question says, what advice would you give? And whereas now you have given some advice, I don't know if there is advice to be given, because it's dependent on, like you said, the characteristics of parent and
Yeah,
child. So our advice, we could give you advice, and it could just not, it could just not work. Like, it couldn't
exactly.
be the right fit, couldn't be the right like dynamic between, it just might not work, and it might not be the same. So I think the advice is subjective.
And also that advice needs to be asked for.
Yeah.
Like, that
True.
parenting is definitely one area that you do not give unsolicited advice for, because you just don't know, like, what, just because this is what you feel makes a good parent doesn't mean that that's how what they see makes a good parent. It's such a subjective thing that I think, in terms of advice, that would be my like one thing to say is,
Don't give any advice.
if they have not asked you specifically, don't give it. And also, if they do ask you, check what they're looking for in the answer. Like, check what your kind of boundary within that conversation is, because what you don't want to do is kind of launch into something that it's not what they were looking for. So
And end up offending. Mm,
yeah,
yeah.
and I think also, like, like you said, just because it works for the two of us doesn't mean it would work for somebody else. So it's like the two of us, because we're quite open and we talk things through. Like, if you were to go and say to another young person, oh, just go and tell your parents, but they don't have that type of relationship with that parent, that could blow things way out the water. And a lot of these things kind of, they build the trust, the rapport, the, like, where the line is, it builds. And I think that's the thing, we've kind of had to work that out. I know, especially when you were in your teens, there would be sometimes you would say something and I'd like lift an eyebrow and say, do you want to try that again? And you would like go, yeah, my bad. And you would just either change the tone, or you would change the language, or you would say it in a different way. But then that's also part of growing up, is working out how you want to behave, how do you want to show up in the world, and you got to work that out for you. There's going to be some guidance from me, and I guess that parenting child relationship is, as good as friends we are, I will still always be your parent first. And so sometimes there's like that parenting, I would not be a good parent if I didn't set that boundary and I didn't tell you that that's where the line was. So
Yeah.
now it doesn't need to be said, because you know where that line is and you don't even walk up close to it, because out of respect, and you just know.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing, is where our lines are, where our boundaries are, where our relationship is not, it's not going to be the same. Even if
No, I
it's
agree.
similar, it's not going to be the same.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. It is subjective. It's all subjective.
As most things in life are.
Yeah.
And it's just different perspectives on things as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
They were really good questions. I like these questions that are coming in.
10 for 10, was it 10? Well, how many questions did we do last week? Like 8?
I don't know,
13 for
actually.
13.
I kind of lost count. I just so ideally it's 5.
Point is,
We
they haven't.
did have 5 good ones come in this time, so it was good
Yeah,
to be
they
able to.
haven't missed on any questions yet. They've all been good.
They have. Pressure is on now for
Yeah.
next month's topic. You've been scheduling the posts. What's the topic for next month?
Goal setting.
No.
Well, we'll see you next month on next month's topic.
We we will put the details in for what the topic is for next month, for the next episode, so that people can start sending those questions in. Have you not? Does that mean then that you've not done the posts yet for the next month?
Well, I was gonna go to the post office for you and then do the post.
Okay. So
It's all planned. It's all on the schedule. It's on the schedule. Yeah, it's on my like the post-it notes you have. I've got mine just to the
He's
right of
as
the camera.
fast
Just
as
can't
his
see it.
thinking as he is
Yeah.
on his feet, I'll tell you that much. Right, well, we will let you know in the comments, in the captions. We will tell you what the next topic is, ready for the next episode.
Wait, so you don't know either?
No, I don't know. That's what I was asking.
Oh, there we go then. I don't feel as bad anymore.
I feel like it's written down somewhere, but no, I've got a complete mental blank for it.
Me too. Yeah.
A complete blank. I can't remember which one follows it. So yeah, we'll put it in, and then people can ask. But that's it for today. So good 5 questions, great conversation. Keep the questions coming in, and we will be back with a new episode on whatever the topic is, and with your questions that you want answered very soon. And we look forward to getting that recorded. So we will be back.
Yeah.